You're listening to Thyroid Talk with Dr. Angela Mazza.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Angela Mazza, a thyroid, endocrine, and metabolism specialist with an integrated practice in Central Florida. Today's topic is the benefits of exercise. As our listeners know, my goal for this podcast is to define and demystify the thyroid gland and thyroid-related medical conditions. By providing information in easy-to-understand format, I hope to help patients better understand the ways in which their bodies work and to help them thrive. I'm glad that Dawn Sheffield, my friend and co-host
and patient,
is here with me for episode 12, the benefits of exercise.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you. It's always such a pleasure.
As I mentioned, our episode today is about exercise. I'm super excited about that. But before we begin, we've received an important question that I want to respond to. A listener says, "Thanks for your show. I listened to the thyroid nodule episode and I had a question. I have a very large, benign thyroid nodule. It's actually a few nodules, but looks like one big one. It's visible just from looking at me. My TSH is normal but almost high, and my T4 is normal but almost low. Looking at photos, I can see I had this nodule for a couple years before I even realized it. The first photo I have found where I'm 100% sure I can see the nodule was around 2 years ago. And I had my thyroid levels checked about 6 months before that, and at that time they were excellent. I have not seen my doctor again yet to tell her about those tests that I found, but I'm assuming that based off the test, hypothyroidism did not cause these nodules. Looking back at my diet at the time, I think I may have had low iodine, but my doctor said if that was the cause, my nodules would be on both sides rather than just one. So my question is, do nodules occur for no reason? And does iodine deficiency always cause nodules on both sides?" That is a really great question, right?
There is.
So, do nodules occur for no reason? Well, one of the most common reasons is iodine deficiency that causes nodules, but nodules can be caused for lots of reasons, and we may not completely understand why. Thyroid is very influenced by inflammation, and anything inflammatory the thyroid is super sensitive to. Hashimoto thyroiditis can be associated with nodules. Cysts are pretty common, which are fluid-filled nodules. The most important thing we want to rule out is thyroid cancer, because those are the types of nodules we don't want to miss. As far as iodine deficiency, every nodule is a little bit different. So if you have one nodule that's caused by iodine deficiency, that doesn't mean that both nodules have to be caused by that. So there's probably a time period influence on that. But to answer your question, one, unfortunately, we're not always able to trace back what the cause of the nodules are, and iodine deficiency does cause nodules, not necessarily on both sides.
Wow. Well, asking questions, seeking understanding, that's crucial to beginning to understand the thyroid and how it functions. And as we know, and we discuss all the time, it's so important to be engaged in our own health care, and getting involved like this, asking questions, is a really great way to do that.
Agreed. That was a really insightful question.
It really was. Good job. Well, as our listeners know, last time we met, you and I, in episode 11, and with our listeners too, we discussed brain fog. And I think there's a significant connection between brain fog and today's topic, the benefits of exercise.
That's right. As a recap, often patients explain their brain fog to me like this. I feel spaced out or foggy. I know what I want to say, but I just can't find the right word. And I can't even complete simple things now that used to be a breeze.
Well, for me, as I said in episode 11, it's more often for me like I get lost in a story and I forget where, like being lost in a forest, I forget where I was going or why I was even telling that story. And for me, that's the worst. I hate that. But my personal experience has shown me that exercise can help significantly with brain fog. And when I exercise, when my blood gets more oxygen, my brain and my body work better together. My general mood improves too, and I know I feel more confident in some very subtle way.
We always talk about physical health, but brain health is just as important. In fact, improving physical health can improve brain health, also known as cognitive health. Improving physical health can help you learn and problem solve. It can also help improve your memory and prevent dementia. There was actually a fairly large study that looked at just that. The investigators used self-reported measures or surveys of subjective cognitive decline in relation to physical activity. Subjective cognitive decline is the self-reported experience of worsening or more frequent confusion or memory loss within the past 12 months and can be one of the earliest symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. They found that cognitive decline is almost twice as common among adults who are inactive compared to those who are active. I'll provide the complete citation information in the show notes for their credit and for listeners' reference.
Well, one thing folks struggle with about exercise is that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. Gosh, it can be hard for folks to know what to do, how much of it to do, and how often to do it.
Right.
Especially if somebody's new to exercise.
Exactly.
It's hard. How do you figure out how much cardio versus how much strength training exercise to do? And worse, a lot of us, including me, lost touch with our fitness patterns and programs and thus lost touch with our own bodies in the pandemic. To me, the stress of it felt entirely cerebral, psychological, but it deeply affected my body too. And I've heard from friends that the same is true for them, especially that sudden absence of exercise and movement and the loss of structured in-person programs that we participated in. I'm literally just emerging from that stupor now, like a butterfly.
Oh, butterfly.
Yep, the butterfly, except I want to say I'm really emerging more like a slow sloth, like a sloth, not a butterfly. That's why I wanted so much to do this episode. I have a lot of thoughts about how exercise can be based largely in our minds and not just in our bodies.
That's true. It's really easy to lose touch with our bodies when there's a disruption of any sort in our lives and our routines. I know you are not alone in that. So to start at the beginning, like resuming a fitness journey, let's define some things in simple terms. Here's the difference between cardio, that is aerobic, and anaerobic exercise. So running around, playing with kids at a park, like pushing them in a swing, doing choreographed movements to music, stepping up and down a stair step, paddling a kayak, doing a slow, long climb up a moving staircase. Your body can likely use oxygen for the energy it needs to do these activities. You get a lot of air in your lungs with this type of exercise. Lots of oxygen to the brain and muscles. You're building stamina and burning calories at this pace. It's aerobic. On the other hand, anaerobic exercise can be more like high-intensity interval training, that's HIIT, spelled HIIT, or resistance training, or weightlifting, including weight machines. It doesn't have to be free weights like you might lift with your hands. Weight and resistance machines count too. In this case, with anaerobic exercise, your body switches to breaking down glucose that is already in your muscles to power you through the workout. That's what anaerobic means. Basically, the muscles are no longer using oxygen. Anaerobic exercise involves short, fast, high-intensity exercise. It's not aerobic. Your lungs still need exercise, though, so don't hold your breath, right?
Oh, oxygen. Yes. Again, I see people holding their breath, and you can see they're kind of running out of oxygen.
I know. They start turning red.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Red, not good. The cheeks puffed out.
That's critical with anaerobic exercise. Well, with both types, actually, right? There can be kind of a gray area between aerobic and anaerobic exercise. Your aerobic activity can cross over into the anaerobic zone. Say, if you're running at a fast pace for a long while, your body will likely switch from aerobic to anaerobic. Some training programs like CrossFit may combine fat-burning aerobic with anaerobic strength training.
Do you like to recommend a mixture of those two types of exercise, aerobic and anaerobic, to your patients, or does it depend on their medical condition? I guess where I'm going with that is, does it depend on their condition in general?
Right. Well, first off, I know it's tiresome to hear, but you really should consult your healthcare provider before engaging in any new type of exercise program. By talking to your provider, he or she can advise you on what type of exercise program may or may not be the best fit, based on your physical ability and overall health. Now, to answer your question, about which type of exercises I might recommend to my patients. So first, if you're just starting out, whatever you choose, start slow and then increase with time. Plus, it all depends upon your level of ability. Walking may be an easy activity to start with. Then maybe add in some light hand weights. Biking and swimming are also good options if you have arthritis. Whatever it is, choose something that you know you can do and try to pick something you like.
And that is a key. Do something you can do and that you like. Sometimes, too, folks have debilitating pain, but nobody can see that pain from the outside. Someone might have a balance deficit or knee or foot pain. Again, invisible. The problem I see as I see it is that this can become much more than just physical, and this is what I think gets overlooked. When we feel trapped in our bodies, and I know we've discussed this, before, but I think when we feel trapped in our own bodies, I think that can easily turn into a psychological feeling of being entrapped in general, in habits, choices, moods, ever-increasing loneliness. I think that's a big one. Isolation and a negative outlook. And exercise can be a huge help in this case. But sometimes we may need a bit of guidance, kindness, advice, and time, maybe some medical intervention to find that path that works for us. And it's not going to be the same for me and for anybody else. And maybe we might ask a friend or neighbor to slow stroll with us to gain some strength, proficiency, and flexibility before doing that slow advancing that you talked about. And not to mention to gain some social contact. Or if we have a certain fitness level, maybe we can approach a friend and ask if they'd like us to help them in that way.
Right, or even join a local senior or rec center, just to be with other folks who are active and engaged as well.
Yeah, it's just so funny because on that note, I once unexpectedly joined a music-based exercise class because I used to stand outside the window. I so enjoyed watching the class because I could see the joy on people's faces. They were having so much fun. It just looked like a blast, but man, I was sure I could not do that. So I was staying there. And one day a friend literally pulled me in with her, and it was the best thing ever. It was there, and I was there. I was terrified, and it was so much fun. I ended up going back regularly. And again, finding so unexpected, finding something you can do, no matter how small at first, might give you big results. But it can take reaching out, or maybe having a friend pull you in.
Right.
And that reaching out, though, that can be really hard.
That's a good point. There may be a lot more than just unwillingness to exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Under the surface that others can't perceive or see.
Right.
Maybe pain and inflammation, maybe fear. We need kindness for ourselves too, as well as for others.
Yeah.
But it's important to note that you do not need massive blocks of time for exercise. Just incorporating more movement, parking farther away from the door, or making multiple trips, carrying your groceries into the house, for example. It can help. It all adds up. I'd rather my patients do many small blocks of exercise than wait for that big block of free time that very rarely comes, right?
Yeah, that's I have a problem with that. I'm working on that.
This just doesn't happen.
No, it's never coming.
Just beginning to move gently can help us get back in touch with our own bodies. A program of gentle stretching, for example, can be a great place to start. Seniors might check with a nearby gym or their local senior or rec center. They often offer classes and other group activities, I know.
Yeah, they really do. I've been shocked by that, really.
There are so many benefits to exercise, both hidden and pretty obvious. I don't even know where to start. Exercise improves insulin resistance and can help us with bringing down blood sugar over time. It'll increase flexibility, and that leads to less chronic pain. It raises our good cholesterol, called our HDL, and brings down our bad cholesterol, known as LDL. Obviously, exercise also helps with weight loss, also in addition to healthy meal planning, of course. And it's a great stress reliever. We always talk about cortisol, but it's a huge stress reliever. I know if I'm having a really lousy day and feel super stressed, Going for a walk always kind of makes me feel better.
And I love that about you, because in contrast, when I feel stressed out, I enjoy a good stretch, and I mean a stretch on the sofa.
Oh, come on.
No, it can be very therapeutic. Stretching is good.
I know you're joking, so I'm going to ignore that, okay?
It may not be.
Exercise is good for our bones, too, and for our joints. Exercise decreases not only our risk for chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, but did you know it can even decrease our risk for certain cancers?
Amazing.
We already touched on the benefits of exercise from a cognitive standpoint. But think about this. Guys with low testosterone, exercise can help increase production of testosterone. And ladies with menstrual irregularities, conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome, also known as PCOS, don't dismiss exercise as a potential treatment option. And guess what, Dawn? Exercise even improves sleep. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. And I figured a little night owl barb was coming my way. But I'm a real solid sleeper now. I'm the sleep leader.
I know.
Sleep leader, don't forget.
You need a badge for that.
See, if I had a badge, nobody would torment me about the night owl. But I am not good. Yeah, a sash. How about a big old sash?
That's what you need.
Or a crown or something.
Totally.
Well, you see, we joke, but I might come back with one. I am just not good at being any kind of owl at all anymore like I used to be. I really do get it, and exercise does help. But in addition to helping us get solid sleep, I know exercise can help us with our mood, our emotions, and our overall health, our mental health. But why is that?
Well, when we exercise, a number of neurotransmitters are released.
Maybe we're just not so tired.
There you go.
Sorry.
So these neurotransmitters, there are a number of them. There's the endorphins, endocannabinoids, and dopamine. So endorphins block pain and increase pleasure. And endocannabinoids are what we are talking about as far as that runner's high. Dopamine also increases that feeling of pleasure. But I'm going to tell you what, you may also feel better about your appearance and yourself when you exercise regularly, which can boost your confidence and improve your self-esteem.
Well, I'm not a runner, and no one's ever going to mistake me for one. But after exercising with weights, I feel an extraordinary, immense wave of well-being. Not like right that minute, but slight delay. And it's amazing. It really is like a wave to me. And after I do certain weight-bearing leg exercise, like leg press, for example, the way I walk is much smoother, much more elastic for a while. In fact, a physical therapist once said to me, "Motion is lotion."
I love that.
I'll never forget that. And what they meant was moving our joints keeps them lubricated and thus less stiff, less painful, and more mobile. My gosh, I don't think truer words have ever been spoken. And in fact, initially, I first joined a gym years ago for two reasons. To gain I had a really low bar. To gain flexibility, it was accessible. Let me rephrase that. It was an accessible bar. And the reasons were to gain flexibility and to have access to their weightlifting and weight pulling, weight pushing equipment to strengthen my bones. I needed training in how to accomplish my goals safely, smartly, and efficiently. And my understanding is, to grow and strengthen our bones, we must do weight-bearing exercise, and by that I mean using weights, maybe even our own body weight, to provide resistance to our tissues. And I'm not any kind of expert in this. I'm groping my way through this too, but my understanding is that resistance exercises, if done properly, can stimulate bone growth. An example might be the machine I mentioned, the leg press, where sitting and using your legs, you push your body away from and slide slowly back toward this big flat plate, fighting against the resistance of the weights in the machine.
That's exactly right. That's absolutely true. And
I hope that's called the leg press. I mean, that's what I call it. I hope so. Could be wrong.
That's what it's called.
Okay, good. I will accept that now.
But you push on a good point. Our bones are in a constant state of breaking down and building up. Our bone density is at our peak at around age 30. And past that point, there is somewhat of a decline, although it may be very slow. Yes, vitamin D and maintaining calcium intake are important, but weight-bearing exercise and resistance training is just as important. Ladies, if you start early with weight training and resistance training and taking care of your bones, it's going to decrease your risk of developing osteoporosis down the line.
Wish I'd have known that.
Oh.
I mean, I wish we'd all known that.
Yeah,
not just me.
but I'm telling you.
Yeah, and now we know, so that's good.
I'm going to give you another hint. A simple, easy way to help increase bone density, even if you have low bone density, is one of those little trampolines, those little bouncers.
Wow.
Bouncing a little for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes a day, a few times a week, that's going to increase your bone density. Easy thing to do.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Of course, bear in mind your level of ability and risk for falling, because you don't want to fall. That's not the point.
Not good.
That's one benefit of exercise I forgot to mention. Exercise can help with balance. But we must prioritize exercise and our own need for it, or everything else takes up the whole day.
Gosh, that prioritizing just took my breath away for a minute. A friend just told me the hardest part of exercising for her is not the physical exercising at all. That's actually the easy part. What's hard is learning how to prioritize it, to make it a habit, and not to mention a joyful habit, in a life that's already overfull with lots of other responsibilities, and mostly responsibilities to other people. And I find that to be true as well. To get some exercise in a day, I have to say to myself, I will get up, get ready, and go first thing, whether it's a walk or some time on the elliptical or meeting a friend to exercise, whatever it is. Other responsibilities and distractions have to take a back seat. Distraction's a big one for me. I don't always succeed at this, but it's a goal. And having to realize that I put it off. I used to put it off and still sometimes do until, I'm too tired to do it, conveniently enough. That was a hard realization I had to face about myself. And that's another mental aspect that I mentioned before.
No, well, that's pretty common.
Yeah, I know.
But as you said earlier, it really can be intimidating, and for lots of reasons, COVID included.
Yeah.
It's especially true of exercise, or public exercise hasn't been a regular part of our lives. In fact, exercising at all may feel like such an unfamiliar and uncomfortable proposition by itself that throwing a gym or group on top of it may feel next to impossible.
Agree.
Well, taking or meeting a friend to exercise, ride bikes, take a walk at the park can be fun and helpful. It also helps ensure that we'll show up, right, if someone is depending on us to be there.
That's not true, because I know personally how much that helps. And I've asked friends to join me to walk, and yes, to ride bikes, to take various exercise group classes. And the thing is, I think that we may all disappoint ourselves from time to time, but I will always show up for a friend if I've made plans. I'm not going to just stand them up. And just as an aside, as an adult, I have never experienced, again, as an adult, I have never experienced public humiliation during my fitness activities. Quite the contrary. I've had great experiences and so much encouragement. And in groups, everyone is working on themselves and trying not to fall down, including me, or embarrass themselves in any way, and nobody is looking at me.
Well, I really promote walking for my patients. Walking is great for lowering blood sugar, losing weight, not to mention increasing your stamina. And getting some natural vitamin D from sunlight, of course, if you do it outside. And one fitness center I've heard of charges for a gym membership but has an indoor walking track that's free for public use. An indoor track is a great option in bad weather, or when you find it too hot, as in Florida, or too cold outside, or too lonely. You may meet other fitness-minded people there. Some folks walk at indoor malls too. I've seen it happen.
Oh, yeah,
that could be dangerous for me though, because then I would want to shop.
I've done. It works great for some people.
Yeah, but
no, I wasn't one of them.
You got to see what's available.
Yeah, I was not one of those people.
The funny thing about exercise is that it can feel selfish, right? Like it's all about us.
Yeah.
All that time we could be helping others or doing other things, but instead we're exercising and maybe having fun doing it at the same time. Oh my gosh.
Goodness gracious. No, let's not have fun. No.
But in reality, becoming fit is the single most unselfish thing we can do for our loved ones and even our pets. To be healthy and fit enough to help meet their needs is a massive gift. You know, like on an airplane when they tell you to put on your own oxygen mask first before there's a loss of cabin pressure. Why? So you have enough strength to help your loved ones. Exercise is like that oxygen mask in more ways than one. Another thing is, don't get obsessed and upset about doing X number of steps every single day. Everybody's got their Fitbit on or count steps. A big number of steps is a great goal. It's a really good accomplishment. It means you aren't sedentary. But getting anxious about an actual number of steps might increase negative thoughts and stress. Remember those dreaded cortisol spikes?
Avoid it. Avoid cortisol.
That exercise is so good at relieving. It's better to focus on the big picture by saying, all right, so today I didn't quite make my goal. Tomorrow I'll just do some extra steps. Instead of getting angry at ourselves, which is really self-defeating, turn it into a goal. Negative thinking is generally not helpful in any sort of way.
And you know what? I have to just backtrack to cortisol for a minute because I said, avoid the cortisol. But as we learned, cortisol is very important. See, cortisol is big, I think, a little bit marketed to us as just avoid at all costs.
No, we need it.
We need it, right. And, still, I know that, but still in my head is I avoid the cortisol. So, no, we have to have cortisol, good cortisol. We want to avoid the spikes. So that's what I should have said. Avoid the negative spikes. Not good. And while we're on the subject of negativity, for this episode, while I was preparing my thoughts, I interviewed a friend who grew up in a different state. I had no idea what their history with exercise as a youth. I had no idea about it. So to my total surprise, talking to her, I learned that we had similar school exercise experiences. Now, I'm talking decades ago. This is not current day, so don't be scared. This is times back. Okay. Not quite caveman time. Not in the caveman time. No. So I found out this friend and I viewed exercise and fitness negatively for decades, due to some of the compulsory gym activities that we had to do back in school. And the facilitators were not at fault. They had a very hard job. I can't even imagine. They had requirements that their students had to meet, and there was no way around it, and I respect them for that. But for some kids, like me and my friend, the program setup, the format, did not allow time to understand the benefits of exercise, not to explain, in any kind of detail. Like going back to weightlifting, for example, that would have been great. That would have been so great to have had in our school program to understand the benefits of weight-bearing exercise. Nor did we remember having any time and training to build stamina and muscle. Some students, we feel, likely experience shame, social stigma, embarrassment, and failure, which in my opinion is not a good way to encourage a love for fitness. So my friend and I got exercise lifting books up to read them. That's the kind of exercise. We did a lot of reading. So a program to help kids increase upper body strength and thus develop a sense of pride, that would have been helpful. Time has erased much of it, but not the lingering shadow of dread that it left behind for either of us. She and I both recall with horror how we could not do the overhead bars, the climbing rope, the hurdles, oh my gosh, not to mention running. We could do them, but just not well. And I think the pressure, the potential for social embarrassment, it was a lot, especially in a group setting. And of course, I'd love to hear from listeners who had similar or different experiences. I'd like to learn about that too. But all of this makes me wonder if this is why some folks still in adulthood may feel intimidated by exercise, reliving deeply buried feelings of shame or fear. And this could be a real obstacle to getting fit as an adult or feeling good about doing it. And it's not even physical, but psychological. And for a while, I really had to work to overcome that feeling of dread that was still in my head. And frankly, I didn't really realize it was there for a long time. And then I found out I can have fun and compete only against myself, for example, especially when working with weights, increasing proficiency incrementally, as you mentioned, starting slow and building up. And by the way, that same friend that I interviewed tells me that in her experience, elementary school kids, for example, now play games, run around, and are taught about the benefits of fitness. They have fun with it, but also learn the science behind it. And I was so happy to hear that. I hope the focus has shifted to enjoyment and understanding, to making it something kids want to do and to continue as adults, because again, I believe fitness attitudes are embedded at a very early age, and my gosh, if they're negative, that can be so hard to overcome.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'll also add that adults in group exercise programs can generally do the exercise to their own level of ability. So if you're kind of unsure about, they'll adjust it. Not like in school, or your past experience, not rigid. Right. So, like if it's a beginner stretch class, for example, and you're really stiff, that's okay. Talk to the class facilitator about ways to modify the program for your needs. Maybe you'll start in a chair instead of all the way to the floor. Then maybe get to a lower bench or a cushion closer to the floor. Mark your progress from there at each step, and remember, that's why you're working on it, to get less stiff. It's not like they expect you to show up with some advanced skills, I guess, unless it's an advanced class.
Right. Totally right. And that has 100% been my experience. Beginners are beginners, and you start wherever you are in your fitness and flexibility journey. And if you have concerns or need guidance, yes, talk to the facilitator. My experience has been that they are really helpful, and they don't have it's not like they have a clipboard that, makes me have to reach a certain goal. Their requirements are to help me achieve my own goals.
Right, yeah. And I mean, I feel so fortunate. I've always been involved in sports, even as a little girl. So if you name it, I probably played it or did it at one point. Basketball, softball, cross country, and track. I loved exercise. Exercise has always been a part of my life, and I can thank my parents for that, because that's how I grew up. I honestly feel like a day without exercise is like a day without sunshine. But I realize I'm the outlier here. So I think it's important to tell your story too, Dawn, because that's what a lot of people feel.
Well, we're both outliers, which is just kind of, we're in the same
bell curve.
It's crazy. But I so envy that you had that gift. What a gift it is, and you are so fortunate, and I know you know that. I know you know that, and I know you're grateful. But your story is as alien to me as mine must be to you. And by the way, I just have to interject. I did play basketball. Of course, I was so short of all the sports.
So sad, Dawn. This is like the worst.
I know, it's just a nightmare. But I actually enjoyed basketball. So, full disclosure. But being short wasn't helpful. But some of us were short, some were not. So it's it's all good. But the thing that matters, and we're joking about it, it wasn't all bad. It sounds very
dreaded.
Like, I know it sounds Dickensian, but no. I mean, this subject brought up a lot of stuff.
I can tell,
as they so often do. But the thing is, none of that matters. What matters is acknowledging it and getting past it and getting started, and no matter your age or fitness level. That's just my thinking.
You're right. The cool thing is, I believe that adopting a physical activity at any age is possible.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And if we realize just what an important difference it can make in how we feel today, as well as being beneficial in our years to come, it might well be considered as crucial to any prescription medication we may take.
And I'm really improved that you can start at any age.
You're doing well.
I'm sloth. I'm
the
butterfly sloth coming out of cocoon. It's totally true. You know it is. But I am proof that you can start at any age, gym or no gym, group or no group, and you can grow to enjoy it. That's really, I think, why I wanted to tell that story about how absurd that dread was, because finding it lurking there and then realizing what an encumbrance it was, my gosh. And just laying that down on the side of the road and moving away from it.
Yeah.
That was just great. So I'm just proof of that, and that's the joy I feel in it now is just funny to me. And for me personally, the best exercise is the one that I will do and do consistently. I don't think there's a magic formula.
No.
And I don't feel that all the science matters if we know the science but we don't move. I think moving and stretching and doing it consistently is a really good way to start.
Yes, that's the main word, consistent. Consistent exercise is the key to getting the maximum health benefits out of any activity. It doesn't have to be the same exercise all the time. You got to mix it up between walking, weights, biking, swimming, whatever it takes to keep you interested in it. But it does have to be on a regular basis. Plus, if you go all out once a week or so, you're going to end up hurting yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned doing the thing you can do. And that advice is really kind of profound, because just last month, my husband and I were on vacation, and where we stayed had a heated pool. Even though it was Florida, summer, it was marvelous. I'm no longer a teenager, so the gentle resistance of the water was so easy on my joints, and I did hundreds of leg and arm movements and extensions in that water every time I got in. I mean, it was just so joyful. But after my first session, I thought, I wonder if I'm going to be aching tomorrow. But no, not at all. It was wonderful. It really reminded me how pleasurable exercise can be. It reminded me, and it also taught me that if you find one you love, one or more, hopefully, that just makes all the difference. And so now, because I don't own a pool, I'm actually checking into using several local ones. I even found a heated one that I can join. Your area might have a municipal pool, or you might want to join a gym or a rec center that has one.
It's interesting just how many possible forms of exercise there really are. There is something for everyone, so you just got to find out what you want. In fact, you and I discovered by accident we both love using the elliptical. So, Dawn, why do you like using the elliptical so much?
Just for our listeners, for anyone, for us to find something that we had in common.
Including in the realm of exercise.
Yes, excuse me, I meant in the realm of exercise. That was just so funny to me. I actually remember that day. I think
it's like a light bulb.
A big light bulb. My mouth was hanging open. I literally just realized that one thing I love about it is that I can do it. As you suggested, finding something we can do. I keep harping on that. I'm apparently stuck on it. Yeah, I can do it. And I feel successful doing it.
Right.
And I have a sense of satisfaction from that. I also love that I can watch how-to videos or funny videos, or I can listen to an audiobook while I'm on it. I find the time goes quicker and is more interesting if I'm engaged in something mentally. I stay on it longer that way than if I'm just slogging along thinking about being sweaty. And it's in a temperature-controlled room, so I can do it consistently year-round. Maybe most important, I don't feel it's going to tear up my joints because it's like a gliding motion.
Right.
So I hope I'm right about that.
You are. For myself, I love using the elliptical because it pretty much works all your major muscle groups. I know it's not for everyone, but it works for me, and I do it in the morning, and I'm good to go. You can even put different programs on your machine, help mix it up. Dawn, the elliptical is a great way to work up a sweat too.
Yes, it really is, but I'm just trying to figure out, I have to drink coffee in the morning. Do you forego the coffee? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where caffeine fits in here.
But caffeine aside, you know how I feel about daily detox.
Yes, I do.
A super easy way to daily detox is sweat every day.
I knew when I said that thing.
Sweat every day.
I knew when I said concentrating on sweating, I was in trouble. I wish I could have pulled those words back before they came out.
Plus, I usually get to watch a TV series that my husband might not exactly be into. I won't name any in particular, but, I get to watch it uninterrupted. What's important is, I think most folks feel better physically and mentally after any exercise.
Well, I know that I do. And, we love to talk about, I don't know why, but we love to talk about primitive times on this show, sometimes accurately, sometimes not. We talked in episode 10 about stress and cortisol levels and how stress can have a really debilitating effect on our bodies that have not evolved since our caveman days.
And we know that cavemen and dinosaurs
we know many things now that and we don't purport to be experts on cavemen nor dinosaurs, so that's okay. You've been warned about that, folks. You've been warned.
I guess unless it's like Jurassic Park or something.
Oh, yeah. See, now
they weren't cavemen.
Oh gosh. We're getting off the track. We're getting off the running track now. See, I'm going to get in the weeds, and you're going to have to pull me out. But here's the thing, Dusty. Now you're making you laugh. With all their exercise, trying to stay alive, and I won't say running from dinosaurs that weren't there, imaginary dinosaurs, trying to stay alive and find food. Cavemen probably did not need to do any additional exercise to stay fit, because I imagine they were already fit.
They pretty much did a keto diet too.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Boy, that's for sure. But these days we have very different forms of stress, especially the very damaging long-term kind. And exercise helps our still primitive bodies process stress and offers myriad other significant benefits
to both our bodies and our brains. Well, listeners, thanks so much for sharing your time with us. I hope this discussion was helpful and didn't make you laugh too much about
please,
certain
I'm
things.
still trying not to
Let
laugh.
us know. In our next episode, we'll cover hair loss.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is it your thyroid? We're going to look at all different types of causes. This is a big subject that I get lots and lots and lots of questions about. So it'll be a good one. I wanted to do this podcast to provide life-saving education and to encourage folks to see a doctor in time to prevent or minimize damage. That's deeply fulfilling. I enjoy helping folks understand how all aspects of their lives are tied to both thyroid and overall health. As always, my goal is to help us live more fulfilling lives by taking control of our health and thus feel our best. In fact, this is why I went into endocrinology. It's a medical art that combines science with the study of our lives and all that they encompass.
And I'm so sorry, because I've been trying not to laugh while you were talking, but I am still laughing about how, and I said, gosh, it would have been great to have known about weightlifting and osteopenia, protecting the bones, and then you said, well, I'm telling you.
This is how my day goes. This is the story of my life, Dawn. This is why we're doing the podcast.
I'm just going to completely lose it. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. And thank you for telling me. Yes. Now, 40 years ago, I did not know you. So 50 years ago, I didn't know you, so I cannot hold you responsible for that.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're off the hook. Okay. So I hope I got that out of my system now. We hope you'll continue listening to Thyroid Talk with Dr. Angela Mazza if you can stand me losing it. We have so many more interesting episodes planned, and we'll build on today's foundation and cover many topics we hope you'll find meaningful. She's trying to make me laugh. I can't look. No, I'm not looking at you. To recap just some of what we covered here today, and not necessarily in this order, the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise. I don't say aerobic as well as Dr. Mazza does, but the benefits of exercise and the prevention of dementia. Some of the hidden benefits of exercise, how exercise can help with our mood, the importance of consistent exercise, and best of all, we learn that we can impact our thyroid health. As Dr. Mazza mentioned in our next episode, number 13, Lucky 13, we'll discuss hair loss. and its many causes. And as always, we welcome your input. Please send your comments, show ideas, and questions to thyroidtalk.mazza@gmail.com. That's an email address, not a message board. Other listeners won't be reading your message on any sort of public forum. And we may disclose your general location on air, the city or town, for example, but we will not read your name nor your address on the show, and we reserve the right to edit your input as necessary. Don't forget to ask your healthcare provider about any specific questions regarding your wellness. This podcast is meant for educational purposes only.